Hello and welcome to the Barac webinar on the first to market encrypted traffic visibility solution, hosted by Ryan Kalish and Sylvester DaCosta. Today, we'll be looking at the rapidly increasing problem with encryption, how cybercriminals are now favouring this as a preferred threat vector, and how Barac's ETV platform detects, alerts, and stops these threats in real time. So who are we and what do we do? We are a young company set up in 2017 by business partners Omar and Mardi, who initially joined the Barclays Techstars Accelerator Programme. This programme allows new and upcoming technical startups access to entrepreneurial guidance and mentoring, plus introductions into networking events in the financial sector, including Barclays themselves, who bought into our technology for their own infrastructure. We also have been invited to the National Cybersecurity Centre Accelerator Programme, which is a specifically select group of vendors and solutions that are seen to greatly contribute to the ongoing improvement of the UK's cybersecurity defences. We have excellent technical and sales expertise across the world, with bases in London, Boston in the US, Paris, and Omar's hometown of Tunis in Tunisia. So what exactly do we do? What do Barac provide? Barac's Encrypted Traffic Visibility, or ETV for short, platform inspects inbound and outbound encrypted network traffic for malicious threats in real time. However, we do all of this without the need to decrypt it whatsoever, and that's what we'll be talking about through today. These are some of our customers and strategic partners we work with. Now, as I just mentioned, Barclays became a customer of ours after being so impressed with our offering that they chose to purchase our solution and still have active licensing across their whole network as of today. Other highlight customers, as you can see, are EDF Energy and Orange. We also have established partnerships with fellow cybersecurity vendors, including IBM Security and Palo Alto, who have incorporated our technology as a third-party collaboration. Already, we have been recognised for various cybersecurity awards and shortlisted for numerous others. This together demonstrates how quickly we have grown as a company and the noise we are making in the market with our unique, never-seen-before technology. So what is the cyber problem? Well, encryption is the primary method for businesses and services to secure their connections and data. However, unfortunately, the very thing that was designed to protect us is now being leveraged against us by cyber criminals. In fact, as a whole, encrypted traffic is predicted to be over 80% by the end of 2019. Now, if you were to ask for our professional opinion, however, we believe this is going to be more so towards the 90% come 2020. Even Gartner, who normally prefer to take a natural stance on things, have recently had their say on encryption and the challenges we all face, stating, the value of network security controls will decrease because of encrypted web traffic blindness. A recent survey of CIOs who are in charge of the safety and protection of our data have also agreed by saying that 87% believe their security defenses are less effective since they cannot inspect encrypted traffic for attacks. 90% of them expect to suffer some form of attack, which has leveraged encryption to hide it. And 79% of them agree their core strategy to improve and accelerate their IT infrastructure is now in jeopardy because these initiatives introduce vulnerabilities. And encryption is on the rise. Now, I shall hand over to pre-sales manager Sylvester, who will give us a deeper dive into the drivers behind encryption and how Barac's ETV solution works.
Well, thank you, Ryan. That was a very good explanation of what we do and how we do it. Yes, this is a slide which we gathered from Thales, Gartner, Google, and Cisco. What it basically says is what we just discussed before this as well. The encryption is on the rise, absolutely. Encrypted traffic expected to be at 83%. In my opinion, it could be quite a lot higher as well, and I'll show you that in the next slide. What I find more worrying is the attacks using encryption, and especially the linear one. So if I'm looking at the linear bits here, it goes from 40 to 83%, and the linear attacks using encryption goes from 10% all the way to 60. That's a lot steeper. basically the cyber criminals are catching up and we need to do something about it. And there's very few people who actually can do something about it because they're getting more and more clever. So that's what we're trying to achieve. Here's another example of that encryption. On the left-hand side, we see Google. Traffic across Google's platforms, all of the platforms, is already at 94%. The percentage using web pages, this is a statistic from Firefox, is already going in the US alone at 87%. As we can see there, 87%. That was in July 2019. So going at the end of the year, it could well be about 90%. What I find also very interesting is the Akamai quote here. A majority of malicious traffic, and that includes web scraping, credential abuse, and all that sort of thing, is 82% of SSL and TLS traffic. That's something we have to also worry about, because if we are using security and we're using encrypted pages, we're using encrypted traffic, and the cyber criminals are doing the same thing, we can't see what they're doing. And that worries a lot of people. Now, the drives to encryption, yes, plenty of drives. More businesses are using cloud-based services. Office 365, Google Suite, SAP, all kinds of other services that we are using. What we're doing right now, recording a webinar, it's all secured. Also, what we see is the certificates. We are all using encrypted certificates for browsing. Everybody knows to look in the left top corner and seeing whether it's all secure, yes or no. But what I find more important and what we see a lot of people doing at the moment is looking at compliancy. We have Barclays as a customer, and one of the main reasons for Barclays to use us is for their compliancy, not just the GDPR compliancy or the cyber essentials or any other compliancy they have, but also for their internal compliancy. Of course, they're a bank, they need to be secure. And we got many more examples for this as well. If you'd like to know about them, we'll be happy to send them afterwards. How to solve it? That's the next question. Now, there's three main methods of looking at solving the issue of encrypted packaging. So using packet decryption, what it does is you're taking sort of a man-in-the-middle attack approach. You yourself, as the good guys, are doing deep packet inspection, taking on extra hardware, making sure that you can take the traffic and decrypt it, seeing what's in it, and then sending it through to the endpoint. That can cause a whole lot of extra hardware. It does cost you more hardware. You need to have all the certificates. If you don't have all the certificates, it can create some not false positives, but also some confusion at the endpoint, at the users. Users going to a website which has been checked before, we don't have a certificate for it, therefore we can't decrypt it, so we mark it as unsafe. They're used to that by after a couple of times they say, this is an unsafe website, do you want to continue? Yes, because I'm sick and tired of it. And now one of an actual unsafe target will flip through and they will click that same, yes, I'm sure that it is correct. So false positives are a lot harder to detect, and the wrong ones are coming through. On the other end, we've got fingerprinting. A good one for fingerprinting, for instance, is JA3. JA3, what it will do, it takes 5 metrics. There is a nice link on here as well. If you follow that, it will explain to you a lot more. The way that it works is kind of like an antivirus. Or JA3 will take the hash of a data packet, and if the hash is correct, it will put it in a signature file. People checked it, they know that it's correct. If the hash is the same and it matches, that's correct. What it is, it's always reactive, never proactive, because you need to update a database. If something changes in that data stream, that will not have the same hash anymore. So either we need to create a new signature or we mark it as potentially bad. And therefore you always need to be up to date, and you don't see a lot, and you see a lot of false negatives. Metadata doesn't have these issues. And that's where we come in as Barac, of course, because we are dealing with the metadata and we do not decrypt. We don't have to decrypt or fingerprint. Why reinvent the wheel? The governments have been using this for years. They've been dealing with metadata, and not just governments, also other very, very big companies, Facebook, Google, all the others. They're looking at metadata. Why? Because if you want to decrypt everything that you see, you just don't have the time for it. You don't have the space for it. You don't have the capacity to do it all. So they're looking at the metadata, and they can see the who, the when, the how frequent, all that sort of little things. And then they'll bind that together and start to looking at patterns. And when you see a pattern of one person is going to that quite often, or it is so regular that we need to have a look at it, or they're searching for something specific, then we can find those patterns. And when those patterns are matching or we see something there, we can look in it a little bit further. But that's all they do. At Barac, we do a lot more. So where do we sit? If you're looking at who are competitors and what do we compete against, that's really difficult to say, because really Barac is one of the unique ones out there. We're looking at metadata. Cisco is the only other one who also looks at metadata using their ETA platform. But as everybody knows, Cisco is a great product, but you need a master's degree to deploy it. So it's not easy to deploy for us. We can set it up in no time, and it works in even less almost. What it also is, if you take the Cisco approach, you need to have everything Cisco. If you take one Netgear in between, or you take another switch in between, it stops working. But then again, if you're completely Cisco, then it might be a good solution. The other one is decryption techniques. Now, there's plenty of other decryption techniques out there. You've got very big vendors who do that. You need to have more hardware. So it costs probably quite a lot more to do all of that. Ease of use, not per se, because it takes quite a long time to learn everything, to make sure you got the right certificates and everything else. It's not really scalable, because the more traffic you see, the more hardware you need. All of that sort of thing is going to be something that you have to think about. The last one is fingerprinting at the moment, JA3, which is relatively new, but a lot of people seem to like it, and it's a very good solution. It is. So what we're looking at there is, it's a network agnostic. Yes, it is. It's in real time. I tick no there because we need to have those updates of the database constantly. So you're always out of date. If something changes in a data packet, you're out of date because it's not there yet. Implementation time, yes, can be short. Artificial intelligence, no, of course not, because we do that very, very well. And I'll show you that in the next couple of slides. So these are sort of our competitors. So what I will do now is I will continue to how Barac actually works and how it all fits together. So it has two elements. We've got a collector and we've got the ETV platform. And the collector is the beginning where everything starts. That goes on site at your customers or at the endpoints. Can sit in Amazon AWS as a virtual tab. What we do, we sit behind a tab mirror or a span port, and we listen to the traffic going through. So we capture that data and we sort out the bits and pieces what we need. And that's only the metadata and the header data. So if it is encrypted data, we're not looking at the encrypted data itself. We're looking at the header, the metadata, and that's all we're taking from it. The rest will drop. And then we'll send that part, we'll send that encrypted to our ETV platform. Now that ETV platform, that can sit on site if you have a really big secure site, or we can host it in our cloud and then send it through to our cloud in a secure manner. And that means that you don't have to invest in extra hardware. And if there is an update on the ETV platform, which happens quite regularly because we see a lot of traffic, we see a lot of attacks, we keep it constantly up to date, and you don't have to worry about that part. So the collector sends the data, the metadata, to the ETV platform, and then it will rebuild that session. The AI, the artificial intelligence or machine learning part of it, will be fed by all of the data that it gets in there, but also from the SOCs or the SIEM if you have those on site. So if you have developers, if you have people on site which are making your traffic a little bit suspicious, what normally would be picked up, you can in your SIEM or your SOC say, this traffic is actually okay. There's nothing wrong with it. We'll feed that in. We'll take that into account. We create an attack profile. And we'll then find out if it's proper or not. We'll give that a risk score. The risk score is between 0 and 1, where 1 is, oh, that is really dangerous. I will do something about it right now. And once we risk scored it, we can then send that risk score over back to the SOCs, the SIEM, and we at the moment do that via syslog, JSON, and REST. And we tested it with Splunk, QRadar, and ArcSight. We actually have some other integrations going as well. We can use, for instance, the Endace integration on the Endace box itself. We can import a collector and look at the data from the Endace box itself, for instance. Now, then we also have a web interface, and in the web interface, we can actually show you what is happening right now over the last couple of days, how many attacks have been. We can show the certificates, we can show the DNS entries, and we can show which IP address internally is connected to which external IP address or the other way around. We can see a whole lot of things. We can also take actions. But what is very important with the actions is that we have to, you as the customer, have probably already set up processes and procedures. And those processes and procedures need to be followed. Usually it goes to a SIEM and SOCs, and they will then say, okay, we see this traffic is marked very highly likable, that it is something that is suspicious, so we'll do something about it, either block it or what have you. If you want, and it goes above a threshold of 0.9 or something like that, we can also write to the firewall and say, block this. So there is an action and alerts to it as well. Now, what does that give us? Where does that lead us? With the ETV, Encrypted Traffic Visibility platform, what we're trying to get is visibility, and we're giving the organizations visibility across their network structure, their secure network infrastructure. By giving the proper visibility, we can then detect what's actually going on. And if something is going on, you can then see the encrypted traffic in real time and see what we can do about it. If there is something going wrong, we'll detect it. And by detecting it and you acting on it, you can create compliance. And compliance, of course, is something that a lot of people want to know and want to have. Banking, insurance, and all that sort of people, they all want to be compliant because that's very important for those businesses. And if you're compliant, you can then say that you are secure and that you're guaranteeing the privacy. That's very much where we're trying to get to. Now, how do we do it? We do it using data correlation. So all of those little bits and pieces that we pick up, over 170 different metrics, which are collected and correlated by the ETV platform, will be then checked. It's not just, hey, this IP address is wrong, or this certificate is out of date, or the DNS name is something which is very suspicious. No, it's a combination of that. As an example, we have a white paper for a South African bank who had an attack going, and we spotted this. Now, what the premise is that there were people trying to looking at exfiltration paths to send money to different banks, and they did that using little bits of money transferring. Now, how it worked was the South African bank saw connections going to some banks in Eastern Europe, multiple banks in Eastern Europe. And when they were doing that, that's not something suspicious. That happens every day, the whole time along. What we also saw is a certificate. That certificate originated in North Korea, but was then used with a DNS name, which was slightly different. Something like Barclay.com instead of Barclays.com. So there was a little bit changing in the name. Now, all those three elements by itself might not spark much interest, but combine those three together, those 3 or 4 together, that for us was data correlation, and we saw something is happening there. We managed to spot it very quickly. We sent it to the SOX team over there. They investigated it and saw, oh shoot, we need to really do something about it, and they did. So we're looking at data correlation, all kinds of different things. We got over 170 metrics. Now, it's also the fingerprinting. So if we're looking at TLS fingerprinting and you have JA3, we're looking at more than just that. We're also looking at the cipher suite. We're looking at the packet length. We're looking at the elliptic curve and whether it's changing, the length of the window itself, and is that changing or if that's normal. We're also looking at devices. We can look at the length of hellos and what have you, looking at all of those devices, and we see what's actually where it's coming from. Now, what are our results? And that's something that we are very proud of course. We have tested a huge block of data, over 400 terabytes, I believe. We tested that and we then let it be retested by independent sources. We let our ETV platform go over it once and say, hey, these are all our results. Can you check those results? And a couple of independent sources checked them for us and came up with that we are very accurate in detection. Very, very few false positives. And the reduction in detection time, yeah, if you just compare that to other companies, and just name Cisco, it takes them about 10 minutes to sometimes 2 hours before they can actually say, this is bad. We do that in milliseconds, really, really quick. What I'm very impressed with, where I'm very impressed with is the false positives in the TLS connections. 2 false positives in 30,000 TLS connections. That is really, really important, I think. Now, what do we detect right now? It's also important for you to know. We can detect DDoS attacks now. There's other people who do that as well. We do it very well. We spot it, we mark it, and we'll notify you very quickly. Of course, SQL injections, we can see that traffic. We know what's going on. We know where it's going. We can actually do something like that. We can spot it and stop it. We can't, if you want us to. The man in the middle is also a good one. There is an example here. What is out in the wild at the moment is a very it's almost, I can't say it, but a very cool bit of technology, and it's called Evil Gen X2. And Evil Gen X2, what it will do is sort of proxies the traffic. And what it does, somebody will get, for instance, a link, and on that link is it's a Facebook link. So they click on it, they'll go into a login page, which looks and feels exactly like Facebook. It is actually Facebook because they're proxying it. But because they're in the middle, you type in your username and your password, then they have your username and password. But they'll show Facebook. They show exactly what's going on there. And so you think that you're indeed correctly there. If you look at the top left corner, yes, it is secured, but the certificate is not Facebook, it's Facebook or facebook.com-ish. So it looks and feels all right. But what they now have, they have all your details. They now know your friends list. They now have everything. And the moment you shut down, for instance, your Facebook, then they'll send out a link to everybody else in their in your friends list. And boom, it goes on and on and on. So what makes us unique? We do everything in real time. We will take it very, very quick. We have artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we'll do that very nicely. So once we put ourselves in place, we can immediately give you on the traffic that you have. For instance, for compliance reasons, we want to know if all the certificates are up to date. If they're not up to date, they flag up red. If they're almost ending within a month, it becomes very, very orange. And within 3 months, we'll mark it as yellow from, hey, you might have want to look at this. We are very quick to implement. I can do start of a POC, deploy a virtual machine in about an hour, take a cup of coffee, and then we'll be up and running if we're doing the cloud deployment. We only take about 1 to 3% of extra traffic because we're not sending all the data. We're not inline. We're taking the traffic. We take what we need and send back 1 to 3% of the traffic to our ETV platform and analyze it and give you the result on it. And we all do this and looking at encrypted data without decrypting it. And that's really what we want to go to. And I think that Ryan wants to have a little word. But other than that, thank you very much for your attention. And I hope that you will find this interesting.
Great stuff. Yeah, thank you very much, Sylvester. So yes, it's been great to see how the ETV platform works and how we do that from a decryption perspective. So yes, for any further information, a one-to-one webinar or with your team, or perhaps with one of your customers in conjunction with you, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. We can also arrange for trial licensing or POCs for you to test. We'll be able to guide you through the implementation of this as well. You can also visit our website, www.barac.io, for useful resources, blogs, and case studies.